in this initial session, I'm going to break down the 3 key concepts that help 90 law firms double their revenues. And actually, these 3 concepts are the same advice that I'm going to give my daughter when she grows up on success. And it's funny that it's the same things that contributed to this exponential growth for the law firms that I mentioned. Number 1 is committing to a big vision. Number 2 is matching your identity to that vision. And number 3 is to eliminate mindset obstacles along the way. And I'm going to break down frameworks for each of these 3. So let's go over to the board over here. And I'm going to actually break down the first of these 3, which is committing to a big vision. So I believe there's an epidemic in the legal industry. I believe that most lawyers, they don't have a vision. They got into business because they got a law degree and they met their survival needs, and then they just kind of flatlined and treaded water for a long period of time. And I know that's how it was in my family. You know, my family's business, my dad owned a paving company, and the business just kind of stayed in the same spot for 20 years. And he was so good at paving, and yet the business didn't grow because he only focused on, you know, the skills that he was good at, paving, just like you focus on being a good lawyer. But the business didn't grow, and we didn't have financial abundance, and ultimately that business went bankrupt in 2008. And because I don't want that to happen to you, I'm going to break down the things that if my daughter ever goes into business, I wish she would have done, and I know that I did in creating my own business when I started. So when I started SMB Team, before I made one sale, I actually wrote out a 10-year revenue goal for myself, right? And I said to myself, I want to have a $2.56 billion impact on the legal industry. And the reason I chose lawyers was part research and part, intuition. I was serving contractors, actually, because that was my background. And what happened was I had a contractor refer me an attorney, and all the contractors, after 3 months of me starting my business, they didn't pay their bills, but the one attorney was actually paying their bills. So I put 2 and 2 together, and I said, maybe I should serve people who actually pay their bills. So that's how I chose lawyers. And then I did a little bit more research into IBIS world, and I found out that the legal niche is one of the most recession-proof service-based business niches, and that's when I decided to go all in on lawyers. And fast forward now, 6 years into my 10-year plan, which was to have a $2.56 billion impact on the legal industry, and in exchange for that impact to earn a 10% commission, which is $256 million in annual revenue. As soon as I got clear on that, I then had this beautiful plan in front of me, and I did nothing with it. I stared at it for 8 months. I waited for the perfect time, right? And I don't want you to do that. And in my third of these 3 secrets, I'm going to show you how to not waste time like I did once you get clear on your vision, so you can be like a bat out of hell when this event ends, right? So the first of the 5 pillars, I call these the 5 vision pillars, that every law firm owner has to be clear on 3 years from today is, first of all, your revenue pillar, right? So how much revenue, if you had no limits on your abilities, you had a windstorm of cash, you could accomplish anything you wanted, you had no limits, how much revenue would your firm be doing? What % of that revenue will be profit 3 years from today? Right? So say you want your firm to be doing $10 million in revenue, right, in 3 years. And you want your profit to be $2 million in 3 years from today, right? Now, for some of you, I know that probably sounds a little bit unrealistic, but again, you're going to learn from lawyers who did exactly that. The third pillar, because it can't just be all about the money, although that's important. I'll give a quick thing on this. Everyone says money doesn't make you happy. When I had my daughter, I was able to afford a night nurse for 2 months to be with her every single night, and I didn't lose any sleep for 2 months, and my wife didn't. So when people say money doesn't make you happy, I don't know if they don't know where to shop or what's up, but that definitely contributed to my happiness. So revenue, profit, and then free days, right? See, most lawyers are not clear about how many free days they will demand of themselves from their law firm, right? If you take every single weekend, there's 2 days in a weekend, there's 52 weeks. 52 times 2 is 104 free days. So if you're not taking real weekends, that's the first place to start. And if you take real weekends, you will have 104 free days completely unplugged from the business. Now, I also believe every law firm owner should take quarterly vacations of at least 5 days per quarter, completely off the grid, in addition to the 2 weekends before and after those 5 days. Every quarter, 4 times a year. That's an extra 20. So I believe every lawyer should be setting a goal to have 124 free days per year. Someone type 124 in the chat right now. At least 124 free days. And by the way, when you have 124 free days, you are going to grow your law firm faster because you'll have more space to think and to be the visionary of your firm rather than the worker in your firm. Then every lawyer has to be very clear on their work focus 3 years from today. When we talk about building a law firm that works without you, that doesn't mean you don't get to still do the stuff you love to do. If you love running certain types of cases, great. Keep running those types of cases, but do it out of choice, not out of necessity. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Do it out of choice. Choose the cases that you want to handle. Choose the things you want to do in the firm rather than being a victim to it and being forced to do these things, right? Be clear on your work focus. These are your top 3 things that where time stops throughout the week, where you feel like, man, if I could just do these 3 things every single day, I would be so happy. I'd be so pissed I have to stop working at the end of the day because I love doing these things so much, right? For me, my 3 work focuses is vision setting, strategic thinking, and impactful communication. If I do those 3 things, I'm going to be a happy camper at the end of the week. But if I spend time doing things that are outside of vision setting, strategic thinking, and impactful communication, then I'm not going to be happy at the end of the week, right? And then the last thing is your sale date. This isn't in 3 years, but every law firm owner should have a goal as to when their law firm will be sellable. A sellable business means the business doesn't depend on you, right? So when you have a sellable law firm, that means the firm is running without you. Everyone should have the option, right, of receiving a $10 million check for their law firm and being able to turn that down and say, no, I want to double down and double that instead of taking the $10 million. And that may sound crazy, but about a year and a half ago, I was offered $45 million for SMB team, and I turned it down. And now the company is actually worth more than double that now, right? In just a year and a half, right? And I want you to have the same ability to have some real capital as a result of all the blood, sweat, and tears you put into your firm. So these are the 5 vision pillars, but we don't want to stay in loopy long-term world. We also want to pull your vision into a 2024 plan, right? I believe every law firm owner on this call, every single law firm owner on this call, should at least set a goal of growing their firm by $1.2 million next year. Every law firm owner. It is not hard to grow your firm by $1.2 million in a year. It is just not hard. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about why you don't believe that's possible, but that's a whole different thing than it actually logically being hard to do that. And this event's designed so that you can have the unlocking experience of actually designing that for your firm. So if you add $1.2 million to your firm and your average case value is $5,000 a case, meaning the average revenue that you receive per case is $5,000, that means that you would need to receive 20 cases a month, right, in order to bring in an extra $100,000 a month in revenue, right? You mean to tell me you don't think you're capable of bringing in 20 new cases per month? You absolutely are. And you're absolutely capable of optimizing your average case value if you're lower than this, right? All that would really require if you turn 20% of your leads into signed cases is you would need 100 leads a month. 100 leads a month. If you convert 20 of them into signed cases, you get 20 signed cases a month times $5,000 a case, and you're making an extra $100,000 per month in revenue, right? So when we make this very simple, right, it turns out to not be that complicated, and that's because the only way to grow a law firm is through what's called the law firm growth acceleration model, right, which Andy and I invented. So let's say you actually did want to grow your firm by $1.2 million. Everyone type into the chat right now, I grow my firm by $1.2 million. At least. Grow my firm. So that means if you're doing $1 million, you're doing $2.2 million next year. By at least. And for those of you who have bigger goals than that in 2024, go ahead and write yours in there as well. If yours is bigger, I don't want to limit you by 1.2 million, right? So the bottom section of the law firm growth acceleration model, okay, basically requires that you have a scalable lead generation system to produce those extra 100 leads a month, right? A scalable intake system to produce those extra 100 leads a month into 20 additional signed cases per month. And at an average case value of 5,000, this is what we call the revenue equation. It's pretty simple. Every law firm owner who wants to grow their firm needs one or more scalable lead generation systems that work without you, one or more scalable intake systems that work without you to produce additional revenue growth. And we're going to talk about throughout this event how you produce those for your firm. Now, once you bring on these extra 20 cases a month, the profit and the freedom comes from you creating a self-managing team and a profit plan, right? So it's one thing to bring on all this additional revenue and cases, but if your head spins off and you get super overwhelmed from it, it's not worth it, right? So we also need to follow the profit and freedom formula, right? By creating a self-managing team, which we're going to teach you how to do throughout the event, and also a scalable profit process. And in my speech at 3 p.m. today, my second speech today, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to leverage this in 4 stages of growth to grow your firm up what we call the lawyer legacy staircase, which is what I'll get to next. This is the only way to grow a firm: your revenue equation and your profit and freedom equation, right? And that's why this event is called the Law Firm Growth Acceleration Bootcamp, because this is the mothership concept that drives everything we're going to show you over these 3 days. So step number 2, once you commit highly to a vision and you break that into a goal of growing your revenues by at least $1.2 million in 2024, hopefully higher than that for those of you who are more established, then what we want to do is we want to make sure that we match our identity to the vision through what I call the lawyer legacy staircase. This is the same advice I'd give my daughter. When I started SMB team, I was a student. I had no business experience. I didn't know what I was doing, right? And I'll show you how I stepped up this staircase and how you can too. But all lawyers start at the lowest identity on the staircase, which is a law student, right? And when you're a law student, you're paying money to learn. But a huge transformation happens when you become a lawyer working for someone else. And instead of you paying money to learn, you now are earning money to learn on the job. That's a pretty dang good deal, right? So right here is a big transformational leap. This is the first time in your life you started feeling self-sufficient, right? When you got out of school, yeah, you had some big student loans you had to pay off, but you started feeling a little bit of confidence around your ability to support yourself, right? Now, 80% of lawyers stay here working for someone else as a lawyer, right? 20% end up becoming a solo practitioner, right? Which most of the people on this call end up becoming are at least at a solo practitioner because you're probably running your own firm, right? At the least. A solo practitioner, the myth that you tell yourself is, I'm going to work for myself, right? But the truth is, you're not really working for yourself. You're working for your clients, and you're working for 1 to 2 helpers that you bring in who ask you questions for every single problem that pops up within the firm. Can I get a true in the chat if I'm telling the truth here, right? You work for your clients and you work for 1 to 2 helpers that are constantly asking you questions, right? So that freedom that you wanted, if you don't conquer this, it's better off to just go and work for someone else, right? Because it's a lot easier. You don't have to have the overhead or the stress of getting clients and all the other stuff and fires you have to put out, right? Now, about 16% of solo practitioners end up becoming what I call a small business manager. Now, when you become a small business manager, you end up pouring more fuel on the fire on the solo practitioner law firm that you built. What that means is you basically take your law firm from you plus 1 to 2 helpers to you plus 3 to 19 helpers. And the reason that this is a catastrophe for a lot of law firm owners is because of 3 reasons. 3 things break your foundation, your delegation, and your capitalization. When you become a small business manager and you expand your firm, and again, I'll go into this later today, but there's a scalable lead generation process is typically what takes you from step 3 to step 4. You start getting more inbound leads, right? But your foundation is broken because you're still running the firm like a solo firm where nobody has clear roles and responsibilities. Your team isn't truly held accountable to numbers, right? And your systems break, right? The way you did things in the beginning don't work when you have 5 times the staff, right? So the small business manager category actually creates a lot of pain for law firm owners. So some law firm owners who expand their firm past 3 employees, they end up going back to the way things were at step 3 and downsizing because they hit a ceiling of complexity, right? Man, this is too complex. I'd rather just go to when things were simpler, right? So you end up dancing between step 3 and 4. This is 90% of law firm owners end up dancing between these 2 steps, about 90% of law firm owners, right? They dance between these 2 steps constantly, and that's what causes them to flatline, right? Your delegation breaks because you're really the one doing everything. You're really still the one in charge of intake, case management, right? And you truly have to, for the first time, delegate authority and make someone else in charge of parts of your law firm so you can have some freedom. And your capitalization breaks because of all the people you hire and the money that you spend on marketing because you don't have a clear profit plan. And you start dipping in profits, which is what we call, in our coaching program, we call this the abyss, okay? So you start to enter the abyss, right? Now, the law firm owners who want to step up and become the CEO of their practice, they make a huge leap from step 4 to step 5. And they become the true CEO of their practice. And instead of working for a small team and your clients in steps 3 and 4, you end up working now, when you're in step 5 and you cross the abyss, you're now working for a vision and a leadership team. A vision and a leadership team, right? So this gives you tremendous freedom, right? Because you've now condensed your points of contact to the 4 or 5 people on your law firm's leadership team, and now you only have to meet with 4 people a week, and they run the people who do the day-to-day work in the law firm because they're in charge of it, right? So when you become a CEO, you're still working in the business because you're still actively managing the business, which is why I believe all law firm owners should set the goal of getting to the owner category, right? Anyone know how much more money Warren Buffett makes than the CEO of Coca-Cola? Let me know in the chat real quick. If you've been on one of our prior events, you probably remember this. How much more money does Warren Buffett, the investor in Coca-Cola, make than the CEO of Coca-Cola in his distributions? Okay, Warren Buffett makes 20 times more than the CEO of Coca-Cola, but he doesn't do any of the work in Coca-Cola. He invested in it. That's because he is a owner of Coca-Cola. He's not the CEO of Coca-Cola. So he spent money one time, and now his money makes him more money, right? So he is more of an owner than a doer. So he has a CEO, just like in your firm. If you want to get to the owner category, you need to hire a CEO or a COO to run your entire firm to give you freedom. When you're an owner, your law firm produces cash flow for you. A law firm is a business. A business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. So if your law firm is not working without you, it's not a business, it's a personal services corporation. Okay? So you want your firm to work without you. That takes you into the owner category. Once you become an owner, you then can make the choice of becoming an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur has 2 choices. Once you've learned how to create a business that runs without you, you then can choose 2 paths as an entrepreneur. Number 1 is the freedom entrepreneur path. Number 2 is the expansion entrepreneur path. The freedom entrepreneur path optimizes their life for work-life balance. The expansion entrepreneur optimizes for expansion, right? So they'll buy other law firms. They'll expand their firm geographically, right? or they'll expand into more practice areas. They'll find a way to expand their successful model either across practice areas or across geographics or through mergers and acquisitions. That's where you become an expansion entrepreneur. That frees you up because the firm's running itself. You now can focus on these higher opportunities as an entrepreneur, which then opens you up to be what we call a wealth multiplier. So the beautiful thing from steps 1 through 7 is you're working hard for money in all these steps, but when you become a wealth multiplier, your money works hard for you. The tables turn. This is where you become an angel investor, where your money makes you more money. And this is really where Warren Buffett lives, right? In the wealth multiplier category. So how many of you are committed to getting to steps 6 through 8? Put a me in the chat. Is anyone's mind blown right now? This is exactly what happens, right? Crossing the abyss requires you to invest in your foundation, to delegate more, and to invest in your firm's processes, okay? To capitalize your firm, to reach that next level. So once you start investing in your firm, that's the lawyer legacy staircase. And this is matching your identity to your vision, right? When I started SMB team, I was a practitioner. I just knew how to do Google ads campaigns for lawyers. That's all I really knew. So I was a practitioner. I then became a solo when I went into business for myself, right? And I started getting lawyers reaching out to me to do their Google advertising. I became a small business manager. And I had to rebuild my foundation. I had to let go of 80% of my staff because the people you have on your team at steps 3 and 4 sometimes can't make it through steps 5, 6, and 7. So I had to go through a complete team rebuild, right? And it was so painful. And that was my version of the abyss. My profits plummeted. But then eventually I hired a leadership team and I got myself that freedom and I started climbing out of this profit hole that I was in. And now I'm actually at step 7. I'm not at step 8 yet. But I want everyone to make a commitment to get to at least step 6, 7, or 8, okay? Now, what's really important to understand is that you can't skip step 6, okay? I hear a lot of people say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to expand now. Dude, you have to get to step 6 in order to have the freedom to be an entrepreneur. So don't skip a step, right? Or you're going to stub your toe. All right, so next is we have to eliminate mindset obstacles on the path, okay? So this is step number 3. So first, we've committed highly to a vision. Step number 2 is we've matched our identity to the vision through the lawyer legacy staircase. We're now committed to, I'm going to be the CEO of my practice. I'm going to be the owner. I'm going to be the entrepreneur, right? So you've made that identity commitment, and now we have to eliminate the mindset obstacles that get in the way. So you set this vision, right? You set this vision for your firm, just like we did in the first step. You know where you want to go in 3 years. But those who don't succeed are those that don't have a why. Anyone can set a vision, right? Now you can come up with strategies to hammer this vision into your head through auto-suggestion and goal setting. I've written down my goals every single day for, I don't even know how many years now, 7, 8 years, every single day. And I repeat my goals out loud to myself in the present moment. I actually recite the Think and Grow Rich major definite purpose statement and the self-confidence formula every single day, pacing around in my house in my underwear every morning. And that helps me hammer my vision into my mind, right? I know I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here and now promise to take such action. I fully realize that the dominant thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes a day upon the task of thinking of the person that I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture of that person. I can go through that entire thing, like the back of my mind, because I do it every single day for years, right? That's how you hammer your vision into your subconscious, right? But then what's your why? Well, your why is either your I refuse or your I picture statement, right? Well, I picture is kind of like your vision. I picture this big future for myself, And I refuse is more of a negative association. So for me, I refuse to let my family suffer the way my growing up family did in 2008. I refuse to do that, and therefore I've invested in my skills as a CEO so that my business can be recession-proof and can stand the test of time and can make me replaceable within it. I refuse to die at the desk. I refuse, whatever that is for you, I refuse to put 20 years into my law practice and have nothing to show of it because it's all dependent on me. Can someone say, I refuse in the chat real quick? If you refuse to have the past be identical to the future. So we can have all this why, but if we don't have any belief, we're not going to take as much action. So we have to eliminate this obstacle. Belief is a lot like a tabletop, right? We have these ideas that float through our mind every single day. If everyone were to say this back to me real quick, we'll get a little kick out of it. Everyone unmute and talk back to me and tell me this. I am sexy. Unmute, talk to me.
Sexy.
Okay.
I am sexy.
Okay.
I'm
So,
sexy.
I am sexy.
right? Someone unmute and say, I go to Mars in 30 days.
I go to Mars in 30 days.
I go to Mars
I go to Mars in 30
Go to
days.
Mars in 30 days.
All right. Now, someone else say, I grow my law firm by $1.2 million this year.
I grow my
I grow my law firm by
$1.2 million this year.
Okay.
I grow
So,
my law firm.
This is
1.2.
my law firm for $1.2 million.
Thank you, everyone. So when we have these ideas that go through our mind every single day, right? And we have an emotional attachment to our ideas, which is basically our belief system. So whether we believe what we say to ourselves is our belief system. So we can say, I grow my law firm by $1.2 million, but if that's just a lie, the subconscious mind is going to reject it, right? Over time. So your ideas can either turn into your list of limits, which are the reasons you can't do it. Why can't you grow your law firm? How many of you can come up with 50 reasons right now on why you can't grow your law firm? Right? Anyone could. It's really easy to come up with a list of 50 reasons you can't grow your law firm, right? It's really easy to come up with reasons that you're not sexy. It's really easy to come up with reasons you can't go to Mars in 30 days, which is probably true, right? But I would venture to guess it's a lot more likely that you can grow your law firm by 1.2 million in a year than it is you'd go to Mars. So you should probably believe that one more than at least the Mars statement, right? So once you start actually identifying the ideas that you subconsciously reject, you start turning your list of limits into what I call your transformation agenda. You stop tolerating whenever you tell yourself, I can't afford something. You stop telling yourself, I can't afford something. You stop telling yourself the job market's too hard. You stop telling yourself they have big budgets, that's why I can't get cases. You stop telling yourself whatever the list of limits are, right, that pop up in your mind, and you turn them into how can I statements. No. If my family's life depended on it, how can I get the number of cases that I need? How can I find the right people through direct outreach on LinkedIn? How can I, et cetera, et cetera? How can I afford it, right? So I need everyone to make a commitment before I move to the next one. Put how can I in the chat real quick.
How can I?
Okay? You're going to ask this to yourself every time throughout the event that you reject a concept. Now, the next step is action, right? So you could start fixing your belief by turning your list of limits into transformation agenda items, right? But if you don't take enough action, you're not going to see the progress that you want. There's two types of action. There's massive, right? And there's minor. You always want to be taking massive action, right? Two types of action as an example. One person says at the beginning of the year, they say, I'm going to start ordering meal prep to get in shape. So you order meal prep every single week so that you can control the calories in, calories out, right? The other person orders meal prep for the whole year in advance and pays for it up front? Who's more likely to succeed? The person who paid for it up front or the person who does it in bite-sized drips, right? So you always want to put yourself in difficult situations when you commit to something, right? You want to be on the massive action side. The only two ways you take action is in the wallet or the calendar, right? Show me your transaction history for the last 90 days. Show me where you spent time in the last 90 days, and I will show you what you're truly committed to. I'll show you the level of action that you're taking as a forensic detective in your calendar, right? So the only way you change your actions is by changing where you're spending time or spending money. If you don't spend money bigger, if you don't spend time on bigger things in your practice, it's not going to grow. It's not that you don't have the time, it's that you're misinvesting the time in the things that are keeping you flatlining. Once you start taking new actions, you form habits of that next level. And once you start forming habits, it's pretty dang hard to stop. It's where success becomes easier than failure. It's easier to just go to the gym because you form the habits of going to the gym. It's easier to spend a lot of money on marketing than it is not to. It's easier to hire people before you're ready, right, than it is not to. And you start reframing all the limits that you had in your mind into your transformation agenda, and they become your default mode. Isn't that exciting? Once you go through this cycle enough, you start seeing massive results. When you get massive results, does that increase or decrease your belief system as to what's possible? It increases your beliefs. You go, see, I can do even more. Wow, I can't believe I already did all this. I can do more. I can take more action. I can form even bigger habits, right? And this is where the success loop happens. So I want every single attorney who's on this event to have this be your mindset. Okay, here's the little eyeballs. Here's the attorney eyeballs right here. Here's the little nose. Here's the smile. Okay, I want this to be your attorney, owner brain throughout this event. This is the mindset of an owner, of an entrepreneur, okay? So, in summary, I'm asking you for three very simple things. Number one, commit to a big vision. Number two, raise your identity to that vision and ascend the lawyer legacy staircase. And number three, eliminate mindset obstacles by doing two things. And this is the best thing about this. You can always commit to a bigger vision. That's completely within your control. You can always take more action, right? So this is the number one thing you always have control over. Right? And that's the number two thing you have control over always. You can always increase your vision. You can always increase your actions right now.